another edition. The Nigerian theatre history witnesses to history, where we speak to people who have immense experience and knowledge in Nigerian theatre in one area or another, multidisciplines, and we ask them questions that help us to keep perspective on the development of theatre over the years, especially in the last 70, 50, 70, 40, 30, 10 decades. Whatever we can bring up from where Nigerian theatre has exploded, we want to bring such people into your homes, into your sight, and into your hearing. And today, we've got a big fish. The big fish who, in the Nigerian or the world parlance, can be called a veteran. He's been involved in theatre and in his area of specialization, which is film, for nearly 5 decades. He's also been not only a hands-on man, he's been a teacher, turning out generations of people involved in the film and video industry. Talking of a man who has traversed a lot of institutions around and who today will help us to shed light on the development of the Nigerian film industry. I welcome to the program today Professor Hyginus. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
The Nigerian film industry is one that appeared not to be developing as quickly as the other aspects. So for a long time, though we had some films, there were not quite many, until we had the explosion of Nollywood. What is the situation now?
Actually, you are very right. I remember some years ago, if you were studying film or film history, you studied not Anglophone, but Francophone cinema. In the US, African cinema was Francophone cinema. In fact, around that time, when the BFI, the British Film Institute, published their thesis on African filmmaking, they called it the African film, the context of production. Only one Nigerian filmmaker was featured, that was another one. Every other person featured in that particular book was from the Francophone African filmmaking countries. But within a very short time, something came in, and there was this globalization, and Nollywood exploded on the stage. Now, the miracle with Nollywood is simply this. Before Nollywood, one concept in film studies is that all film industries are alike because they all produce the same thing. So Nollywood now comes up, not producing the same thing. So there was a shift in paradigms automatically, you know. So here we had a film industry that was total, and UNESCO recognized that immediately, because then you are dealing with feature-length films, they count. So you said, this industry is producing this amount of films. First it was third place, now it is second place. So there was this explosion really that came about, and it is interesting how it came. But the problem is that when we are looking at Nollywood, we are going to think of Athena, who was born fully developed. Nollywood wasn't born fully developed. There was a lot of gestation when it was when Ogunde and the rest were there. So these things were actually, and if you look at the first set of people who came on, they were people who had some training there. And I'm talking particularly of the practitioners of the Yoruba traditional theatre.
At that time.
Yes.
The Ogunde, the
Babasala,
the Afolayan.
Good. So they already had contacts with celluloid, with television. And by the time SAP came on, and it was no longer possible to import films or to produce films, I'm talking of celluloid. So a vacuum was created. And what these guys did, the Yoruba Traveling Theatre, was they simply started producing the same kind of film using reversal filmmaking. So it kept the place going. And by the time they had exhausted the stock, the reversal stock, the next thing was to use video. So it's interesting how the thing came up, you know. And then television did what it had not done for the film industry when it was celluloid. You see, for any film industry to grow anywhere, television has to buy into it. But unfortunately, we had a situation where television refused to buy into the industry when it was slave filmmaking. Television did not buy into it. Simply because, I think it was purely economics. It was simply a situation of making an economic choice. If it will cost 10 naira to make a celluloid film, and you are running a TV station, you can go abroad and you can buy programs for the quarter.
Yeah.
And they stop buying and they throw in all they will throw in. It was cheaper for you to come back with all those things than to engage one Nigerian filmmaker or hire or take his film to run your station. So for television, it didn't make any economic sense
To engage
to
in
patronize those films.
production.
And then the NBC was not yet born. Because what the NBC did when it came on was to say, okay, for you to renew your license as a broadcaster, you must fulfill this requirement: local priority, indigenous programming.
Yes.
So that was lacking at that time. So it was inevitable that cellular died. So it was not just the economic aspect, the SAP. All these things contributed to the death of cellular. And all those things again helped video film to come up. And so that's what we have today. So a lot of experimentation came with it before it was born, and a lot of experimentation is going on with it today. And so you have an industry that is like none other anywhere, and that is growing by leaps and bounds. Now today, I think they say Nollywood is worth 15 billion USD, which is quite a lot. And don't forget, that is what was used to rebase the national economy.
Yes.
And this is the catch: it is still artisanal. It is still an industry at the very much artisanal level.
That's
and
true.
it is contributed so tremendously to the national economy. So much happened.
Actually, one of the things that had engaged my thinking was the nature of videography. A lot of it is coming from perhaps what we'll call the unpracticed hands. People who didn't really have proper training in theater or in filmmaking. Making
But you
waves.
see, it's like a double-edged sword. Yes, so much is being shot out, but again, so much that is like bottom of the barrel. It's not top notch.
The dregs.
Yes, the dregs. But the thing is this: it's like you have an audience that has been starved of his own stories, and so they lap up these things. But the time is coming, and the time is fast coming, when the audience will be more discriminating. So who really determines the kind of film that is made? Is it the filmmaker? Certainly not.
It's the consumer.
Yes, if you remember what Hitchcock said, Hitchcock is on record to have said something like, you say, I experiment with my films. I will go to greater experimentation if the audience will let me. So at the end of the day, it's the audience that determines film taste. But what you have with these guys who come into film is that they think they know what the audience wants. And that's where the problem is.
So they determine what the audience gets.
Yes. And so they make any kind of film. But the audience is so patriotic that it laughs off this film. So it's like trash sells. So it doesn't really pay you to spend so much money to make a good film. You can make a bad film and it sells.
They will still watch it.
Yes, the audience is becoming more discriminatory by the hour.
In terms of when you started in film, now, well, some remarkable improvements, but even till date, we are not seeing a lot in terms of cinematography.
I want to disagree. Yes, seriously. Because some very good films are given. Number one, see what has happened over the years. The policy environment has grown. The legal environment for film has grown. And then the manpower has seriously grown. Now we have departments of theater arts that teach film. Now we have film as a discipline on its own. Now we have polytechnics teaching film. You see, what is Ekwuazi did when she was Minister of Education? She came up with this smart idea that if you have all these studios in Lagos with all the equipment, and they can use these things only for production, why not use them to increase the manpower stock of the country? And so she came up with this beautiful idea. If you own a studio, you could take in some people and train them, and we'll give them the innovative degree in broadcasting, in film. And they don't need to come in with 5 credits. They could come in with 2 credits or 3 credits. And then in 2 years' time, they end the diploma. And so NBTE said, okay, what's the idea? And then we'll have to prepare the syllabus for that kind of thing. But then this country, the way policies change, or the somersaults you get. By the time
Once the initiator is no longer there.
by the time she left, another minister comes and says, okay, why don't we make it in such a way that they have 5 credits?
Going back
Yeah.
on
So
the number
that-
of credits.
Yes, so they get 5 credits, they go into this program. But you have not changed the program you prepare for those without 5
5
credits.
credits.
And you have not changed the program that will fit into the university curriculum. So then you don't turn out people that universities don't take. But the good point is this, you are turning out people who have the training.
Who can be in the industry.
The industry. So you see what's happening at the polytechnic level you are getting them, at the degree level you are getting them, and then at the apprenticeship level you are getting them. And then you are getting them at the cash and carry level, where some institutions like the York and the rest of them will come, offer a C2 course. So we have a lot of training going on. And with that kind of training, the manpower quality has really increased. So
I see.
So much has happened,
Mm.
and what we are saying is the effect of all this, and the effect that we are getting production there all the time. So even the so-called third-rate productions, the so-called bottom of the barrel, they are moving every day. You are getting more by those who are trained.
I had some, call it trepidation about the treatment of personnel, those handling equipment, those on set, that they are not being well remunerated in a lot of cases. How do you think this can be?
No, you see,
Well, how has this been?
No, but that's a very relative thing to say.
How has it been proved?
But let me tell you this. How much does it pay from script to screen to produce a Nollywood film?
Mm-hmm.
If my budget is 500,000 naira or 200,000 naira, how much am I going to? So it depends on the budget, and it depends on the time. You see, we have an industry that is still very artisanal. I remember that Nigerian copyright was the
Copyright Commission.
commission. There was a time under Epo and this under S.O. Williams also.
Mm.
What they did was, okay, let's prepare contracts. Let's prepare contracts for all the trades and professions in the film industry. This will be the director's contract, the DOP's contract, and this. They did that. Beautiful work done. But then, if my budget for the film I want to do is lean, like we say, shoestring budget, anybody coming into that production will get a shoestring payment.
I agree with you.
So it costs very little to make a Hollywood film. And everybody who works in it will simply get paid something very little.
Because I remember a time I saw some people, this must have been about 20 years ago. And they said they came to help with the production of one of their friends. And all they were getting was a meal.
A song will even do it without a name. Just for the fun or the kick of appearing on screen.
So I was worried about their welfare. And in that time we were having actors, producers who were falling sick and they couldn't eat.
Yeah, but what has happened again? The industry has become seriously gilded.
Mm.
So you have the Directors Guild, the Scriptwriters Guild, so these guilds will fight for the welfare. What is happening is that Nollywood is professionalizing every day,
Right.
and then you are beginning to realize you have A-rated directors, and producers who won't accept anything below a certain amount of money. And when they give you a contract, they are going to deliver the contract they're giving you. I would think that yes, we are coming from a situation of deprivation, a situation of poverty, but we are going into where actually you can garner more and produce more and get more money.
You were also heading the Nigerian Film Corporation at a very important time. What do you think that kind of institution can still achieve for the industry?
What happened at that time was we were still making the transition from celluloid to video. I think my greatest achievement would be that before I went in, video was viewed with a lot of suspicion. And I mean very serious suspicion. We looked down on video.
Yeah.
And I do recall that we had gathered at the National Theatre to sign a petition against Jimmy Ate for accepting to show video films in the National Theatre. I remember that very easily. So this was at about the period I came in. And that was about the period my predecessor was actually minding on office. So I think one of my initial successes, because my brother used to say, this is Nigerian Film Corporation, it is not Nigerian Video Corporation. So I remember that what I then did was a quiet fight. Government is not going to create another corporation to take care of video. So what we need to do is to widen our mandates, and incorporate the video. And that's what we did. I chaired, and then I was just a consultant to the Film Corporation. I chaired the National Technical Committee that drew up the National Film Policy. And the film policy created enough room for you to admit video as film.
That's right.
So it was simply a question of the thinking, if you can change it a little. So by the time the Nigerian Film Corporation accepted that video was film, the problem was solved. So that was what we did at that time, to create it. Now, if you take the act establishing the Nigerian Film Corporation, you say, my God, this is going to be a fantastic establishment and it's going to achieve so much. But I think it didn't happen because government, I know it didn't happen because government, it says, for instance, you create opportunities for training, for research, make films, establish an archive, conduct research. Anywhere the Film Corporation turns, it spends money. There's no place the Film Corporation, going by its decree, by its act, will earn anything. It is spending, and government doesn't give it anything. So that became a very big problem. I spent how many years in the Film Corporation, and I got, how much did I get from the budget? Only 1 year, and that came even after I get it. I get capital budget. Did I get the capital something? Otherwise, it was just recurrent. Pay salaries and do this and do this. But then again, we got a UNESCO grant, and we used it for training. And I think there's this, what was the title of the film? We got the filmmakers together. It was a workshop production, and we did that. So that's the kind of film we did at the Film Corporation at that time, because there was really no money. And then, of course, gilding the industry was another thing we took very seriously. That's when we created the guilds. That's when we created the documents.
Right.
And I remember putting out a national ad at that time. We said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Create all the guilds you want to create. And then lift these guilds from your suitcase, because these guilds were just in the suitcase. Lift them out of there. Come to the Lagos office of the Nigerian Film Corporation. We'll give you office space, and then do what you want to do. And that helped a lot. So the Film Corporation is really a child of necessity, but it begins to look as if that necessity that gave it birth is no longer there.
So, what's the way forward?
Right now it has been listed for commercialization, which is unfortunate.
You think that is sensible?
It is not, because you still need a body.
Because it will lose.
Not only that, it will die.
Focus.
No, it will die.
You can't do that.
There is nothing it can do.
In a private,
it can't compete. You still need a body that will make the kinds of film that government wants to be made. A quick example. Jonathan gave how many billions to the industry. I was in the committee that was constituted to look at the portfolios and help discuss the money. Look at the films. Look at the quality of the proposals written at that time and the kind of money given. Unfortunately, we couldn't monitor the productions.
They didn't have the capacity.
No. Not just the capacity, the shelf life. We didn't have the time.
Okay, that's true.
After that. You see, but look at the films that were produced at that time. The thing is that for government to demand that certain kinds of film to be made, and in the interest of the society, for certain kinds of mass mobilization films to be made, government has to do it. And that is why the Film Corporation started calling again for the creation of the film fund, the national art fund, the film fund, to create it. So that when you create it, you can then dictate for the kind of films you want to be made. I can't go to the bank and get money to make a film, and then you tell me the kind of film you want
to make.
Look at the moral rearmament films made in the US. So if you want to make such films, government has to provide the enabling environment for such films to be made. So what the Film Corporation did was, the Film Corporation is then very necessary to make such films. The kind of films that the private filmmaker, that the independent filmmaker cannot make, but that will be necessary, for the society. It's only the Film Corporation that can make it. So actually it's not the best thing.
Why is the government unwilling to continuously make grants to not only the film corporation, even
Anything culture. The government, the aggregation of funds and the distribution of resources, culture comes last. So even if you take all the parastatals and see what goes to culture, it's minimal. So it's so. I don't know why that is so. So government has not paid adequate attention to culture. It has always been that. You know. So when a ministry is part of the culture, when an institution is part of the culture ministry, then it's going to partake on that.
it's a potential that people.
Oh yes, that's what it is really. When it's going to fail. So the film corporation is necessary. You know, maybe a modified look. It's really interesting. When government was going to set up the film corporation, you know, it set up a committee. The committee did a very good job. And the NFC was actually going to be in charge of censorship also.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But then what happened was, immediately after this, the filmmakers went up and they were led by Dr. Labalo, I remember this very well, that the same institution cannot produce and censor. And so that was why that thing was, the film production was not created for long. By the time the argument died down, they had removed that clause from the film corporation. So it was no longer to censor. It was just to produce. And could it produce? You know, when you don't give it money. But the point is that if you had left censorship with it, it would have been a very good mandate for it.
If I could make money,
that is
even
that.
From that.
So what the film corporation did now was to empanel us.
We've just delved into the world of film in the academics through Professor Hyginus Ekwuazi. I'm sure that you are excited with that first bit. As we come to the end of that first bit, I ask you to continue to look forward with me to our next episode next week, when Professor Ekwuazi will continue to bring us into the world of film and the academia. Thank you for watching, and continue to be with us on the Tundelanio podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, and leave your comments. Hit the subscribe button so that you can have a notification when a new episode will come up. A new episode comes up every Thursday by 6 p.m. Thank you.